On July 2, 1863, during the second day of fighting at the three-day engagement at Gettysburg, a pivotal stand was made on a small ridge located at the edge of the Union line. It was crucial for the Union to hold this position, or else the Confederates would have the ability to flank the Union forces, altering the course of the battle, if not the war. This engagement became known as the Battle of Little Round Top. On the 1st of July, 1863, the Union and Confederate armies clashed outside the small town of Gettysburg. However, the battle was never supposed to take place there. Gettysburg was a small town but occupied a crucial road junction connecting to Baltimore and other important cities. The battle itself was massive, 70,000 to 75,000 Confederates against 85,000 to 90,000 Union troops. Contrary to the myth, the Confederates were well supplied, equipped, and fed. After an intense first day of fighting, the Confederates successfully pushed back the Union forces. The Confederates were able to occupy the town of Gettysburg. However, the battle was far from over. The Union Army was pushed back to several hills surrounding the town. Several hills figured prominently in the battle and ultimately determined the outcome of the military conquest there. Oak Hill, Blotcher's Knoll, Beaner's Hill, Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, Big Round Top, and Little Round Top. Little Round Top is the place where the Union Army preserved their line and ensured a Union victory. After winning Day 1 of the Battle of Gettysburg, the Confederates successfully drove back the Union forces, where they occupied strong defensive positions, forming a fishhook-like line. Little Round Top was the shank of this fishhook. On the Union's most left flank, they dug in securely behind natural barriers. Despite the Union occupying strong defensive positions, the next day Lee decided to attack the Union's positions. The Confederates were led by Major General John Bell Hood and soon took Big Round Top. Next, they headed north to try and take Little Round Top, which was virtually undefended. Brigadier General G.K. Warren, chief engineer of the Army of the Potomac, realized the danger to the Union lines and sent for troops to secure the flank. General Warren wasn't even a combat officer. He was a topographical engineer, but his actions to call on reinforcements helped save the Union Army from being flanked. The Union Army called on Brigadier General Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain and his boys from the 20th Maine to save the day for the Union. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was born in Maine, where he later went on to teach at Bowdoin College before the start of the war. During the outbreak of the war, he took a commission as a lieutenant colonel in the 20th Maine Volunteer Infantry. Joshua Chamberlain and his men were the first to make it to the scene. They fortified themselves behind stone barriers they had constructed. Wave after wave, the 20th Maine stopped the Confederates from advancing. However, their men were running low on ammunition, and they knew that they could not withstand another assault. Chamberlain recalled, "Just then, so will a little incident fleck a brooding cloud of doom with a tint of human tenderness. Brave, warm-hearted Lieutenant Melcher of the Color Company, whose captain and nearly half his men were down, came up and asked if he might take his company and go forward and pick up one or two of his men left wounded on the field, and bring them in before the enemy got too near. This would be a most hazardous move in itself, and in this desperate moment we could not break our line. But I admired him. With a glance he understood. I answered, 'Yes, sir, in a moment. I am about to order a charge.'" Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. To the surprise of the Confederates, the Union Army charged downhill with fixed bayonets. They took many prisoners. The Union Army's flank was saved thanks to the heroics of Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain and the 20th Maine. On the third day at Gettysburg, after failing to hit the Union from the flank, Lee devoted his entire army to a full assault in the center of the Union lines, thinking it would be less protected because of all the support that was put on their flanks. What came next would become one of the biggest disasters in the Civil War. The romantic bravery of what came to be called Pickett's Charge was magnificent, but it was doomed. Federal gunners knocked apart the charging Confederate formations while still in open ground, and massed musket fire from the dug-in defenders finished the job. Armistead and a few others reached the stone wall and the batteries that marked the leading edge of the Union positions, but they were destroyed. Armistead was mortally wounded just over the Union side of the wall. Of the 12,000 men who took part in the charge, only 7,000 came back alive. 5,000 Confederate soldiers were killed in a mere matter of hours. In Lee's official battle report, he stated that, owing to the strength of the enemy's position and the reduction of our ammunition, a renewal of the engagement could not be hazarded, and the difficulty of procuring supplies rendered it impossible to continue longer where we were. Such of the wounded as were in condition to be removed, and part of the arms collected on the field, were ordered to Williamsport. The army remained at Gettysburg during the 4th, and at night began to retire by the road to Fairfield, carrying with it about 4,000 prisoners. Nearly 2,000 prisoners had previously been paroled, but the enemy's numerous wounded that had fallen into our hands after the first and second day's engagements were left behind. The Confederates lost over 28,000 men during the 3 days. The Union lost 23,000. Lee was devastated by his losses and called for an orderly retreat to Virginia. This was the last time Lee attempted to invade the North. The New York Times published that the information received here is that the battle at Gettysburg last night was extremely fierce and stubborn. Heavy and determined assaults were made by the rebels, which were gallantly met by our troops. After the war, Chamberlain would return home a hero. During the war, he earned the rank Major General. On top of this, Ulysses S. Grant asked him to accept Lee's surrender at Appomattox. Shortly after the war, he was elected governor of Maine, and later went on to be the president of Bowdoin College. In 1893, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his leadership at Little Round Top.